infrastructure for mentoring collaboration, or PRIME. So later on, we may be entertaining questions from our guests over there as well. So to formally open this morning's program, may I please call on Dr. Fernando Esperana, Project Leader of the Engineering Research and Development for Technology, or ERDT, to open the event.
Good morning, everyone. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. First of all, I would like to greet and acknowledge basically everyone, but with a specific mention to the following. First, to our visiting professor and guest of honor for today, Dr. Romel Gomez from University of Maryland. Short story, our Dean, Dr. Isalinda de Leon, met Dr. Mel Gomez. Was it the first time we met Dr. Adin de Leon? When our Dean had a roadshow of the College of Engineering in the USA last October. So actually our Dean was also with some officials of the Engineering Research and Development Foundation Incorporated, and one of them was Engineer Ma'am Chato Calderon, so, the president of UP. And also, I would like to acknowledge Engineer Sorpito Aliga, also from ERDT. And also, Dr. Richard Dizon, the director of the EEE Institute. So thank you, sir, for hosting this event for the our venue and later on the workshop. Thank you. And also, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Gan Tapang from the College of Science, and also some other participants from the College of Science, and Engineer Brian Rasco from the DOS Design Brand. Engineer Romeo Santiago and Engineer Jason Fumera from the Philippine Council for Agriculture, Aquatic, and Natural Resource Research and Development, PICARD. Thank you for coming. Our ERDT scholars from Ateneo de Manila University, De La Salle University, Mapua University, and UP Diliman. So, yung mga ERDT scholars, nasan kayo? Nasa likod na yun. And yeah, also our participants, faculty members from Mariano Marcos State University. So they came a long way. Also, for the faculty and the students of the UP College of Engineering. So baka mamaya mas dadami pa kasi taga dito lang naman sila. And also from kapitbahay natin, participants from DOST Advanced Science and Technology Institute, or ASTI. So ASTI people nasa likod. Okay, so first I would like to welcome you officially to our Engineering Forum series. This is also titled Frontiers in Engineering and Innovation 2019. So it is a regular program of the ERDT. And for the first installment of the series, we have the lecture, Connected People Using Connected Gadgets, or Internet of Things. Okay? And this will be delivered by, as I mentioned, our guest of honor, Dr. Mel Gomez. So, with the AI, Industry 4.0, advancement in electronics, microelectronics, materials, leading to advancement in sensors, network, feedback system, and all other connected systems. There were a lot of development in technologies that were beyond our imagination in the past. And now, surprisingly, they have become integrated in our daily living. So, it is an opportune time for us to use, learn, and innovate on these technologies so that they can be helpful to our daily lives, and also we can find solutions to our emerging problems. And also, for the ERDT program and the universities and academia in general, this will empower our faculty members and scholars by giving them opportunity to learn about new discoveries, trends, and innovations in the field of science and technology that can help the country. So in moving forward and in hope for today's event, we will be able to inspire the participants to spur intellectual activities in embedded systems and IoT, as will be handled by Dr. Mel. And especially we can put it in the context of development of the Philippines and solving our emerging problems. So, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and hello. So, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you all to give your most active participation. Let's all learn together, interact with each other together in our learning today with Dr. Mel Gomez.
Thank you, Dr. Verano, for that introduction. For that opening remarks. We'll be starting out some minor with the microphone. Is the wired microphone on hand? Oo. Oo nga. Mas reliable yung ating wired microphone. Ayan. Can you hear me better? Yeah. Oo, kasi ito yung this is the... Okay. I just like to give myself undue importance for events like this. I will be introducing our speaker for this morning. Ito yung kanyang very brief 3-page bio lang naman for everyone who attended. For those who don't know Dr. Romel Gomez, which I'm sure if you're from his particular field, you already know him very much. A brief introduction before he begins his talk this morning. Dr. Romel Gomez is a professor and the associate chair for undergraduate education at the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the University of Maryland. He obtained his PhD in condensed matter physics from the University of Maryland, an MS degree from Wayne State University in experimental atomic physics, and his PS degree here from the University of the Philippines. He has co-authored more than 100 scientific publications including several book chapters and 3 U.S. patents in the general area of nanotechnology. Apart from research, he teaches undergraduate and graduate courses in quantum theory, electromagnetic theory, magnetism, electronic circuits, and engineering design. As associate chair, he has implemented significant changes in the EE and CPE programs to modernize the curricula to better prepare students for jobs in the industry and graduate careers. He is a proponent of hands-on education and has spearheaded the development of several training laboratories in his department. He's also leading an effort to develop EE programs in Southern Maryland and the universities at Shady Grove. Dr. Gomez has been active in the international community in various roles, such as the General Chair of the IEEE Intermag Conference in 2005, the Chair of the Technical Committee on Magnetic Society in 2004 to 2007, and an editorial board member of the IEEE Transactions in Magnetics from 2000 to 2004. President and board member of the Philippine American Academy of Scientists and Engineers. He has served as consultants to several agencies, including the National Institute of Standards and Technology, Walter Reed Army Medical Center, and Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden. He is also actively engaged in programs that benefit the Philippines and has founded a program known as VISIR, or Versatile Instrumentation System for Science, Education, and Research, to promote sophisticated and cost-effective instruments for K-12 students. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the floor Dr. Mel Gomez, our presenter.
Maraming salamat. Thank you all for for joining. I'd like to particularly say hi to the folks that are joining us remotely. I see that there are some students from Batsu. Can you hear me? Batangas State University. Very good. Could you please say hi to Dr. Tirso Ronquillo? He's a good friend of mine. Tell him that Mel is here, and I expect for him to buy me a beer afterwards. So my purpose in coming to the Philippines and to tell you about Internet of Things is so I hope that we can spur enhance a development of IoT devices, or in general, this idea of being part of the digital world. I have been in the university for a very long time, and I've seen a transformation that is taking shape right before our eyes, and it is very, very rapid. And I think it is incumbent upon the Filipinos to actually be at the forefront of this technology. And I really think that we have the capability to be hopefully a leader in this area if we put our resources and our minds together. So let me begin by saying where I am. I am from the University of Maryland, and the University of Maryland is a campus very close to Washington, D.C. So yes, we are aware and bombarded with all sorts of political news. We have a wonderful president, as you know, that we all love to. And just like the University of the Philippines in Diliman, we aspire to be very good in basketball. So our mascot is Testudo. That's a turtle. No, it's not a slow turtle. It's a turtle that's supposed to eat snakes for breakfast. So we have that, and just like the Philippines, University of the Philippines, we're also eager for a national champion. Our last, we were national champions way back in 2000, and had not performed as well since. So as a quick outline, I'd like to always say when I give talks to students, I tell them I only really give you 3 items. Because there's really not much more than 3 items that people can absorb. And so these 3 items are quite straightforward. I'd like to talk about ano ba yung IoT? What is IoT? And what are the global opportunities in IoT? Not only Philippines, but also global opportunities in the field. And what would be good? How would we train IoT experts in the Philippines so that we could be competitive globally? And those are the 3 main points. So let's see. You're probably familiar with these icons. Some of these icons are probably used more than others, but how many can you identify? Could you identify at least 5? Oh yeah. How about 10? How about all of them? Okay, so so these are icons now that are, these are parts, this is now part of our lives, okay? And what is the common theme between these icons? What? Internet, yes. It's certainly common, pero what are these? These are, a lot of them are social media, right? And you know the power of social media. We send Instagram messages to each other, and Facebook, for example, and you know the power of, for example, Facebook. It has the capability to make massive, impact the society. As a matter of fact, you might be hearing that there's an issue with even the United States politics being affected by Facebook. You understand what happened with Cambridge Analytica, who got access to 250,000 initially, and then it actually exploded to more than 10 million, highly directed. And of course, if you have that kind of a platform, you can make changes. And that's exactly the power of these social media sites. And these connect people to each other, and this is what we call essentially the Internet of People. Essentially, what it means is that people generating data and people consuming data. And so we put in our Facebook feeds and so forth and so on. It's essentially people using data. Now, as powerful as it is, I have a few notes here. So I am going to use my eyeglasses because, hang on. There comes a point in one's life when, when glass is as essential as breathing. So, in the world today, there are currently 2 billion smartphones, 1.2 billion tablets, about 3 billion PCs. There are about 4.2 billion active users of Facebook, and there's 3.4 billion internet users. And so it's all around us. As a matter of fact, in the Philippines, we're actually most active. One in every 1.5 Filipinos or somehow have an online presence. So that's pretty amazing. Like I said, the Internet of People is very profound. It has made some significant implications in our lives, but this is going to actually be supplemented by a much more powerful, even more powerful force, which is known as Internet of Things. And I'll let you know that that Internet of Things will become is going to become very, very powerful because of this other game changer, and that is artificial intelligence. Whether we like it or not, there is going to be artificial intelligence, and it'll be within your lifetime that there'll be systems that are probably godlike in terms of omnipresence and omniscience, and this is something that we all should be prepared for. I'll talk a little bit about that in a few more minutes. Now, you saw those sites, right? So earlier, can you recognize some of these sites? You probably can identify 2 or 3 or 4. There's Intel IoT, there's Microsoft Azure, there's probably Google Home. Do you have Google Home now? Google, set the timer to send some shots. Google, close my door. Or Amazon, or Alexa, or Siri. We have those now? Yeah, so look at Siri, right? Siri, what's the weather today? The weather in Manila is going and so on. So how does it know it? It's because it has this audio recognition, it's pattern recognition. All of it is really artificial intelligence. But the one thing that's really very important is this company called Sentience. Sentience is a very interesting company because its goal is actually to create what is known as the super AI, super artificial intelligence, which is actually a system that's almost human, that will have consciousness almost. It's, whether you like it or not, there are people thinking about systems who will write software, who will write their own software. Really, truly artificial intelligence. And this is the future. So I don't know, maybe in the next 20 years, we'll be slaves to these computers, but hopefully not. Okay? But anyway, these are the groups currently that are very active in the field of Internet of Things. Now, what is Internet of Things? A lot of people think that Internet of Things is about gadgets and so on. It's really part of the whole ecosystem. So right now, when we say Internet of Things, in the most simplistic sense, we say that these are objects or devices, maybe sensors and actuators that are connected. But it's important that it's connected to the cloud. It's not connected only locally, but it is connected to the cloud. And that gives it tremendous power. So you can see all of these talks about IoT. People generally think of IoT as like a device or so, It's not quite. It's a whole ecosystem of that. So now, what are the what could you do with IoT? Well, IoT, Internet of Things, enhances the performance of really just about anything. Okay, just about anything. In fact, you can, after this talk, you can imagine anything, you put some connectivity to it, and you know it's going to enhance its capability. Tignan na lang natin ang isa, which is a light bulb. We have a light bulb, we have a light switch. If you turn it on and off, it powers the lights in the room. That's okay. But supposing you have, let's say, a Bluetooth connected light switch. So say it could be controlled using your smartphone. In fact, some of the students here might already be doing this as projects. You know? So you have a light bulb all of a sudden that you can control. And from there, you can have remote access. It's very convenient. You can turn on your light anywhere essentially anywhere in the city. And that might, because of that, you can also program it in such a way that it turns on when it's needed, and it's off when it's not. So you have some energy savings, and you can also program it so that when someone's moving alongside it turns it on, and so you provide a little bit of security. So you see that little light bulb, just putting connectivity to it, let's say a Bluetooth or some sort of a way to turn it on remotely and put a little bit of intelligence, has already enhanced the capability of a very simple light bulb. But that's not IoT. IoT is when you've got a lot of these smart devices that are together. So in a city or in a not only let's say the building or the entire University of the Philippines campus or some of the other campuses. Imagine all of your light switches are connected. And imagine that some of them, yeah, you have a remote access everywhere, but let's say that the light switches also are endowed with a measuring device where you measure the current and so on, the current draw. So now you begin to realize that, there are areas that draw a lot more power than others and so on. And as a utility company, then you can adjust the distribution of the power load, leading to, well, savings in energy. And savings in energy means lower costs. And that's just one implication of a simple light bulb connected to the IoT. You have more efficient power delivery, low-cost energy, and bakit hindi? You can even have new business models. You can imagine, for example, that you're going to give away the light bulb, but it's going to be a service subscription for light bulb that you're only going to be paying when the light bulb is on. Bakit hindi? How many times? How much? How many watts? How much energy do we waste lighting up things that we don't really need to light up? Bakit hindi tayo magkaroon ng bagong business model in which I am going to be paying only when the light is on, and I'm not going to pay it when it's not on? And that's a light bulb. What about the air conditioning systems? What about the transportation systems and so on? Anything that you put connectivity and intelligence enhances its power, and that's the key message. Now, IoT, the ecosystem, is comprised of actually 5 areas. The first one is, you might think, on the extreme right, is the device or thing. And that would be like the light switch or your smartphones and your sensors and so on. And that has got to be connected wirelessly. It has to be connected wirelessly to some form of a gateway that allows it to communicate to the internet, namely the cloud. So you could say that, for example, the wireless network, it could be in many ways, in many systems, including, like I said, Bluetooth, short distance, or Zigbee, or XBee, but eventually you have to connect that to the cloud, meaning an internet gateway. So the gateway is part of this ecosystem. And alongside there are these data. You have the data, this looks like hard disk drives. You have to collect the data, even if it's only metadata, not the actual data, but the data about the data itself, like the timestamp, who did you contact, and so forth and so on. All of this information should be collected and stored, and it goes to the gateway. And of course, to the cloud. The first two, the thing and the gateway, are maybe hardware driven. The rest, which gives its power, the IoT, is really software. Cloud. cloud computing, and then analytics. What is analytics? That's an example of it is artificial intelligence, machine learning, neural networks. Those are the things that really provide tremendous value to IoT, is what you are going to do with the data that you get from the cloud. And then from the analytics comes the user interface. That's where you make money. The user interface, for example, is where companies would pay you large sums of money to introduce IoT in their system. Halimbawa, for example, you are a factory. Let's say that you are a taxi operator. Let's say you have a taxi operator, and let's say that you're so advanced that you put sensors on your cabs. And so you know exactly kung ano nangyayari sa performance ng mga kotse mo. And so even before an accident, or even before a repair is due, you already know that it has to be done. And that's just a taxi cab. What about other manufacturing? Imagine in a manufacturing system that you actually have, you monitor the systems all the time in order for you to make sure that they're all operating in peak efficiency. That's going to be energy savings, and people are going to be paying you good money for it. What about analytics? What about the analysis of the data that you can get? Let's say a traffic pattern in Metro Manila. I understand that now a lot of the transportation systems, they have RFID, that you can identify where they are. Imagine the capability of being able to track all vehicles. If you are a very, very clever individual or a very clever software developer, then you might come up with algorithms that would make the traffic a little bit more bearable. It took us from the airport to Taguig, it took us an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. That's because of the traffic. And I'm not saying that the solution is eminent, but I think that if you make it a little smarter, some sort of a technique, an algorithm, if you will, to come up with better ways of flowing traffic using internet, then you might be able to come up with something, an improvement in traffic. And so the last three are software. Last three are algorithms. The last three, and this is what we are finding now in the United States. The cost of hardware, they are actually going down. It's not trivial because there's a lot of issues also in hardware, but the cost of hardware has surprisingly gone down. But it is intellectual content, the developing algorithms, that's actually going to move this field very, very fast. Now, IoT is in its infancy. Now, I don't know if you can read this. I think that if you were to obtain a copy of the slides, you can get it. But right now, this is a chart. On the x-axis is years, starting from 2015, about 3-4 years ago, and extends to about 2025. And right now, we are in 2019 or 18. We are at the 23 billion. There are 23 billion devices. If I would just point where it is, we are right here. We are right here in around 2013. And so from 2015 was 15 billion to 23 billion. It's probably a factor of about 50%, 60% more. But the next 5 years, you would see it'll double. And this is a classic example of exponential growth. This is exponential growth, and we are only beginning to see the growth in this is the linear part of the exponential. If you remember your algebra, if you have e to the alpha x expanded, that's 1 plus alpha x, that's the linear term, and then the cubic term, and so on. It's exponentially exploding. So you expect that well within your lifetime that you are going to be hitting this. And this is exactly the reason why I'm saying it's kind of a wake-up call. Let us move forward in making sure that the Philippines is fairly aware and knowledgeable and contributing in the area of IoT. Because we are in the infancy stages. IoT is just a toddler. And then in about 10 more years, you would see a lot more of its maturity. It's a whole lot less mature than the Internet of People. So now, having said this, it's there. Sorry, that's the title. The IoT is in its toddler stages. Ngayon, what do you expect globally? This is the Market Watch is a very traditional publication used by Wall Street, by these people who are involved with money, and they're expecting. I know it seems like a lot. It's 2,488 billion. That's about $2.488 trillion by 2002. IoT itself is progressing at the so-called compounded annual growth rate of 19.17% every year. And this is the industry forecast that would include the software, the hardware, organizations, and so forth. Now, lagyan natin ng konting comparison. Sometimes when it's trillions and so on, we need to put it in some sort of a perspective. Ang Philippine GDP, from what I've looked at Dr. Google, is in 2018 is about 320 billion. That's $0.3 trillion. And the United States economy is 20 trillion. So you can see that IoT by 2022 is one-tenth the economy of the United States, which is the largest economy. And you can see that it is almost 15 times the economy of the whole Philippines. Ganun kalaki ang growth ng IoT. So it really is a lot of business. And so at the University of Maryland, we have corporate sponsors. We have corporate board of advisors, from Lockheed Martin, from Texas Instruments, Microsoft, and so forth and so on. And they always tell us, please, we need a lot of people to work in the area of IoT, and which is why there's a lot of benefits for people like yourselves to actually work in this field. Maybe not if you like to stay in the Philippines. I'm sure you could. I'm sure that you could do a lot of work here as well. So now, it's an opportunity. It really is a tremendous opportunity. So please, I'd like you to think about how much opportunity this really represents. I should tell you that the salary ranges of people who are in the software or electrical engineering and so on in the Philippines in the US is staggering, which is why we are having difficulty trying to recruit graduate students to go to advanced degrees in engineering, simply because they have a fabulous life once they finish their education. I know it's going to be incredible, because if you were to convert it into Philippine pesos, you're talking 5 million pesos a year for a 22 years old kid who just barely finished. That is how much this is needed in the world, and we could not get enough of them. Ang laki nito. Ang laki nito. And so just like anything else, we should have a piece of the proverbial bibingka. We have to have a piece of this pie. We could not simply let this go as the whole world is. Otherwise, this is going to be dominated by the little tigers. Singapore, for example, is spending a lot of money sending their students abroad to study this. Of course, Thailand. We're just back from Thailand. They are now so much into IoT. And of course, the usual suspects, China and India. They are in this game. And so if we do not participate, if we do not actively involve ourselves dito, o conscious effort, then we are going to be left behind. As you know, there's a prediction that there is the digital haves and digital have-nots. I tell you, I have been rich, I have been poor. It's a whole lot nicer to be rich. So please think about it. So I would like to share. A friend of mine is the chief strategist of Microsoft research, Microsoft Azure in particular. So Microsoft, as you know, they have the Word, they have all sorts of various programs, and one of them is Microsoft Azure, which is specifically on ERDT. And he tells me this is the way that Microsoft looks at this business in terms of numbers. Right now, they build things, you got 30 billion connected devices by 2020. Okay, we get it. There's going to be a lot of it. A typical company that they serve would save or would make about $1.5 million in extra, either in savings or profit, dahil lang, ginawa nilang IoT-enabled ang kanilang company. Kahit na sino, actually, there's an interesting problem in India. So in India, they're like the Philippines, meron din silang sari-sari store. Of course, I forgot what it's called in Hindi. But they have a sari-sari store where they have the tingi of the rice, right? So but they don't, not only rice, but they have this saffron and spices and so on. Well, I don't know if this is universal. They are finding that may mga kupit-kupit. That the amount, you understand what is kupit, yes? Or is that an antiquated term that doesn't happen anymore in the Philippines? May mga kupit pa ba? Okay. So anyway, what happens is that the store owner realized that, okay, he started off with maybe 100 kilos of spices, and then sabi niya, at the end of the day, okay, 50 kilos na lang natira. Okay, very good. So I have sold 50 kilos of this spice. He looks at his register, register, and then he realizes, teka muna, why is it that I only sold 25 kilos? What happened to the other 25 kilos? Well, maybe his workers are not as trustworthy as he thought they were. So what they did, and so he had this. So what he did was very simple. He just simply put some gauge sensors, some sensors that will measure the weight of the sack of rice. Okay, and it has a timestamp. Anytime that you're going to remove 1 kilo, 1 kilo is going to be removed, the weight is going to go down by 1 kilo, and there's going to be a stamp. Okay, exactly 1:02 p.m. or whatever, this particular bin, we sold 1 kilo. Well, you can imagine, at the end of the day, he realizes 25 kilos. Teka nga muna, sino ba who is my worker who is selling rice at exactly 1:30, and how come it didn't register? So things like that. And on account of this, he was able to, or his company was able to save easily $1 million just in theft prevention. And that's just theft prevention. Napaka-simple application. Any AE student here could probably come up with something much more sophisticated than just that. It's basically a weight scale with a timestamp that's reported to him. And it's not even IoT. Well, it became IoT because he had to connect all of these different stores together. So that's an example of typical savings, of controlling anything. Now, and then you gain insights. Now, here's the thing. 10% of the data that you're going to get now on Earth would come from IoT. Yes, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have all of those. But those things are really very, what we call, dirty data. You don't really know what they mean, and it's had to be corrected. It's very dirty, very hard to analyze. The context is very difficult. So, if you do big data, context and the cleanliness and the trustworthiness of data is very important. So IoT devices, they don't make opinions. An IoT device that measures, for example, the temperature is going to tell you exactly the temperature at that particular time. It's not going to be, maybe it's politically correct to say that it's 1 degree. It's not going to do that. It's all going to be all precise. And so IoT data would tend to be cleaner, the context would be much more refined, and it's a whole lot easier to do neural networks and algorithms on data that you can trust. Without going into too much detail, as you probably know, in machine learning, there is the so-called supervised learning, and there is the unsupervised learning. You've heard this, some of you. The supervised learning is like teaching someone how to recognize a glass of water, given these are the various pictures of a glass of water. That's supervised learning because you're telling that's water, that's a glass of water, that's a glass of water, and so on. So then the system realizes how to identify a glass of water. But unsupervised learning is different. O sige, Iho, just look at everything there and you tell me what it is that you can derive from this data. And that is far more powerful. It's unsupervised. So you gain insights that you did not know before. And the reason why you get that insight is because you have trustworthy data. And IoT devices can produce that for you. And then after that is taking action. How do you make money out of all of this data? How do you know, for example, that ultimately you might have very smart systems where cancer diagnosis is no longer that difficult? Well, I'm sure it will be for a long time. But supposing that based on certain biomarkers, on certain attributes and so on, this is this particular type of cancer, and this is the particular kind of genetic treatment that it has to be used. And that's where the money, and that's where the impact is going to be felt by IoT. And so you're looking at tens of billions of dollars. And that's what a company like Microsoft might think in terms of IoT. This is the Microsoft Azure. Ano ba yung nasa isip nila? You see, you've got the things that are the devices that you wanted to monitor and so on. And like I said, it has to somehow go to the cloud. The cloud will have its own gateway. And then the insights, artificial intelligence and the data analytics that I was telling you about. And then the actions. And then whatever actions you make, you bring it back to the things. Think about industrial manufacturing. Think about power distribution. Think about fleet management. Think about logistics. Okay? You get devices, you get data from these devices, you analyze it in the cloud, and you make actions to go back. Think about agriculture. I was dreaming one day, maybe there's a day where we will be able to put just the right fertilizer, or maybe just the right amount of what do you call it? Pests. Pesticide, of course. Just the right amount of pesticide when you have a sensor for certain pheromones that allow you to effectively measure the amount of insects in the corn. That doon ko lang lalagay tamang pesticide. Well, of course, we're already doing that in smart farming in a certain extent. We have we don't want to put too much water and so on, so we have humidity sensors and so forth and so on. Smart farming is another example. Yan ang strategy. So, I'd like you to think about when you're doing your research, I'd like you to think about, what are the things that we could improve that we are doing right now to make it a little bit more efficient. Okay. So now let me move forward, and this is the value chain. This is where the value chain based on Microsoft's model. In other words, as you go from left to the right, you have more and more money, or more and more income. The first is the smart sensors. So there are people who can make devices and sensors and so on. That's part of it. Then there's the smart devices, where you get machines, meters, phones, and so on. That's another piece of the pie. Protocols and gateways. As you know, you probably have IP. Those are very important. Switches, routers, think Cisco systems, and so on. That would be in the connectivity. And then you've got the platform, you've got the analytics and services, and you've got the applications and solutions. They need people in all of these areas. So it's not only computer programmers that they need people who might be doing logistics, mathematics, hardware, software, power, and so on, just about anywhere in the value chain. So as you prepare your education, think about where you might fit in this value chain. Now, so it used to be that that Microsoft would hire only GUI developers, graphical user interface developers, app servers, database, yun lang. But now it has expanded. Now they're looking for people who know analytics, and, statistics, and so on, data analysis, strategists, system architectures, human experience, standards, clouds, and of course, merong legacy. Ano yung legacy, di ba? That's a euphemism for old-fashioned. But legacy systems, whether you believe it or not, whether you like it or not, are going to remain. Why? We've got instrumentation that are legacy systems, and you cannot easily change those. So you have to interface with this legacy system. So you need people who know, kahit na mga tao marunong mag C programming or basic or very simple, very old systems, that's still going to be of usefulness sa Microsoft Azure. Cybersecurity, of course, that's something that is big. Now, you also know that business models are changing. So it is no longer that you sell a product or a hardware. Hindi yun eh. We now have changed it. Did you notice that they almost give away the printers for free? The printers for free? But what did they ask you to buy? The ink. Right? And the ink, it's unbelievable. How can this ink be $100 or in fact the printer itself is $50? Bakit amal? Because that's the model. And it's also data. Data sometimes is worth it. So they give you free devices, as in free minutes, if you are going to like something. Right? Do you do that in Facebook? They give you this incentive. You like something because, and then they give you free. That's an incentive. Why? Because that like, your little like there, means a lot. If they know that you have liked this particular product and a few other things, then they know a lot about you. That's it. Basically, they know a lot about you, and if they know a lot about you, they can bombard you with further ads that you cannot refuse to buy. To ignore. Some people are wondering, in the States, they walk into a department store, and all of a sudden they get this app about something about pregnancy. And the person, this female, was wondering how the system knew that she was pregnant. Her parents did not know. Her husband, her boyfriend, did not know. She just learned it last night when she was checking. And she was wondering, well, it turns out that all of the sites that she visited, I'm sure it's not going to be obvious. She did not visit a baby store. No, it's something less obvious than that. But because of the things that she visited and the things that she had liked, there are these powerful algorithms that basically know everything about this person. So don't think that you're incognito. That's okay. I put it in Facebook, different age, different name, and everything. No, they know it. These algorithms are far more powerful than you can imagine. So anyway, long story short, there's a lot of interest in new business models connected with data. You can also use data as a service. And so I'll move more. And so what examples? Factory equipment, hospital, home appliances, vending machines, and there are demands and new opportunities. Let me park on this a little bit. As you prepare your careers, think about the opportunities where you might be in high demand. Sensors and connectivity, platforms with advanced APIs, analytics and insights. You can also buy and sell data, data brokers, ecosystems, large governments and networks and universities. Companies are changing from products to tech companies. In other words, clothing, instead of selling technology for clothing, you sell the technology for fitness. Instead of clothing, you sell fitness, and so on. Of course, cybersecurity is very critical. There's also going to be a lot of need in people who know cyber security. So that's the point of view of my friend from Microsoft, and he is a chief strategist. So I think he kind of knows what the direction of the field is, and that's why I've asked him to share these few slides with me. So now let me go on to my own thing, which is the key to our competitiveness. I think that the key to our competitiveness is education and projects for the common good. And there are, and this is just a few of the challenge projects that I think would be uniquely relevant to our Philippine context. The Philippines is actually one of the most calamity-prone countries in the world. Did you know this? They say, wala naman tayong tsunami. That's right. We don't have tsunami yet. But we've got landslides, we got typhoons. In fact, this year, how many typhoons did we get? 20, and these are powerful typhoons, and we see flooding and so on. We are really, that's why we are a resilient people. It's because it's okay, give it to us, we can handle it. But we have a lot of opportunities here based upon the fact that we are quite unique in that we are a nation that is probably in need of most prayer. But anyway, so we have, so you can think about it. Calamity early warnings, landslides, flooding, earthquakes, fires. I would imagine that if you are close to a cliff, there has got to be a sensor. There's got to be a connected sensor that would provide an early warning when there's something is about to landslide. I imagine that there's going to be a system in which you can have flooding, that you can actually predict the amount of flooding that might happen before, hours or maybe days before it happens. We can probably need ad hoc emergency communications. What happens if the cell phone tower or whatever falls down? You can have ad hoc communication. Once again, IoT. Farming and livestock, transportation system, marine environment, energy and power, law enforcement and justice, manufacturing, healthcare, national ID system. I understand we're going to have a national ID, right? Kakaroon na ba tayo? Magkakaroon with biometrics in there. Imagine if it's RFID, where everyone knows everybody else, and the government can track your movement anywhere you go. Isn't this utopia for the government? You go and you know. People are saying, no, it's 30 billion, how many, 120 million, right? How can anyone possibly be able to track 100 or so million of its citizens? There's going to be no computer capable of doing that. Think again. There's the cloud, and there are these massive databases. You probably don't see it too much, but you know, you've heard of data centers, yes? Google just invested almost $1 billion in Sweden, close to the North Pole, as a data center. Kasi doon malamig eh. They don't have to cool down. And that is tremendous. That has in the exabyte. I can't even count that high. It's in the exabyte, 10 to the 18 bytes that we can all get. So, do not think that there is not enough memory in this world to track, not to track you every minute of the day. We could. I mean, they could. Okay? So that's one thing. Now, you might say, ano naman pakialam nila sa akin? I'm just a regular UP student. You know, I go write the Ecot, I go this. What kind of information could they possibly be of usefulness to them? Well, maybe not you, but but imagine thousands like yourself. Imagine the amount of statistics that they can get by the knowledge of so many of these kinds of people. You can do a lot of things. You can change a lot of things. You can even elect presidents in this way, if you get what I mean. The power is just amazing if you have this. So be careful of the fact that well, not careful, but let's be cognizant of what it could do. So ang dami nating opportunities. And here's a little code for you. If necessity, then invention, right? Necessity is the mother of invention. Right? If multiple needs, well, it would lead to multiple inventions, right? So Philippine society needs are multiple, a lot of problems. And therefore, Philippine society inventions should also be a lot. So expect, masyado maraming problema ang Pilipinas, marami din tayong solutions. And besides, the Filipinos are tremendously creative. That's part of our DNA, I think. I have seen so many people all around the world, students and so on. I'm almost, and this is not because I love my own, I just know somehow in the Filipino culture that we are resourceful and creative. You know, we can really fit a cube in a circle. I mean, you know, we have very good files to do that. We are so clever and creative, and we find go-arounds on systems. So I really think that the Filipino culture is probably an advantage than any other culture to offer significant advances in IoT. So remember, an IoT can enhance the performance of just about anything. Just think about what it could use, what you need to do. And it is not that expensive. The hardware is mura. And you can get them from other places. China. You can do that. You just have to figure it out on your own. But it is not the hardware, you see. Of course, it is not the hardware that's driven the innovation. It's the algorithms. It's how you use the hardware. It's how you get data and so on. And that, you cannot buy it from China. You can just create your own. And that is the value that I'm proposing. So ngayon, how can the government help? I think that this has got to be cannot be done only by the universities or by students. We need help, right? So I really think that IoT training should be promoted in schools, K to 12. Maliit pa lang sila. I know that my good friend Gani here has the effort on Visor, which is instrumentation and so on, which is using microcontrollers and so on. I really think that all, kahit na grade 1, grade 2, public, private school, they should be cognizant of embedded systems, of IoT. And it's not that, make them do some robots, something that make move forward, backwards, whatever, as long as they're cognizant of this. We should fund research programs and educational activities in computing, in communications, networking, machine learning, embedded systems, and cybersecurity. China, I'm picking on China since the closest big power here, right? They spend 10 billion, that's with the B, US dollars specifically on artificial intelligence. $10 billion. You know the power of artificial intelligence. So ngayon pa lang, let us have research programs in computing from the OST. Please, if there are these wonderful proposals related to computing and artificial intelligence, machine learning, neural networks, cybersecurity, find a way to fund them, particularly if it's going to involve many students. That is so essential. And we should also establish public and private consortium on IoT standards and applications. And we should also fund IoT-related infrastructure problems. Good? All right, so now, how do you produce talent for IoT? Now, this is where the rubber meets the road. I'm an educator. One of the things that I do is, well, I'm a professor, so I have to profess. And I'm in education, so I develop curriculum, I develop programs, and so on. And so, as you might have heard, I am developing a degree program, part of the University of Maryland, which is close to my campus, but at the satellite. But it's not an electrical engineering degree. It's not a computer engineering. It's not a computer science degree. It is a degree on IoT. What it is that we pick the best areas of those other fields and combine the two. And this is what I'd like to share with you now, the curriculum of something like that, with hopes that perhaps some of you might want to be able to implement in your own schools. So like I said, let's go back to these components of the IoT. We have the IoT thing, which is the hardware, and the gateway, which is a combination of hardware and software. We have the software, which is the cloud. We have the analytics, and we have the user interface. So all of those 5 areas, that's the ecosystem. How do you develop solid foundation on this ecosystem? Okay. So the first thing is a thing of computer, or a thing or device. So what are the things that go in there? If you were to specialize in things and devices, then you should know quite a few fundamental things. First is analog electronics or circuits and digital circuits. Analog circuits, I'll explain to you a little bit later. You should know power management, power generation. If you kind of got 30 billion devices, IoT devices, how are you going to power them? Saan ka kukuha ng energy? I mean, you need to come up with extraordinary ways to get energy. And how are you going to manage it? Embedded systems, how do you make them such that they are integral parts of entire systems? And of course, communication hardware. You got to know electromagnetic propagation, you got to know the various standards, and so forth and so on. That's the thing. The gateway. Yung gateway, kailangan mo marunong ka ng networks, of course. Various networks, and of course, protocols in IoT. When I say protocols, I'm talking about different kinds of short range, long range, and Bluetooth, Zigbee, all of these things. And of course, the Wi-Fi, the so-called Wi-Fi, the IEEE 3.3 systems, yung Wi-Fi. And then after the gateways, cloud and compute. So what gets into, what do you need to know if you are going to be an expert in cloud computing? Of course, distributed computing is one of them. You got to know data storage, edge and fog computing. I didn't touch on this, but remember I told you that a lot of the data sometimes are dirty, so you need to process it first locally, and that's where this edge computing is. There's consortiums about edge and cloud computing, and of course, machine learning. Machine learning, you cannot escape that when you are going to talk about cloud computing. And then analytics. Analytics involves machine learning again, but of course data science and cyber security. Okay? Ayan ang mga areas that you need to do in sa analytics. And then finally, user interface. Ito yun. This is the enjoyable. Some of them could be computer graphics, some of them making apps, some you can make control systems, and the architecture of the system of this IoT. These are all going to be in the user interface. So those are the broad areas that people should be cognizant. So now let me talk about what would be a good curriculum for this. Ano bang gagawin natin dito? Let's imagine that we are going to do all the specialization in 2 years of one's education. The last 2 years. So let us assume that the students that already are going to enter the program already have calculus, calculus 1 maybe, calculus calculus 2, right? Let's say you already have differential equations, and you have a little bit of linear algebra. All of those fundamental mathematics, let us assume that we already have them prepared for that. After that, anong dapat? And of course, physics and chemistry and all that. So here's I put it in terms of icons. So here would be like 6 courses that I think is very important in the first semester. In the first semester, students should be cognizant of analog circuits so that they at least know how to build simple analog devices using transistors, operation amplifiers, and so on. They should understand how to shape the data, how to filter in an all analog regime. Digital circuits, they should know meaning of gates, NOR gates, AND gates, truth tables, and so on. And the reason for that is digital circuits are a lot easier than analog circuits to implement. It's a whole lot easier to come up with logic devices using gates with ones and zeros as opposed to op-amps and analog devices. But you need analog circuits because you need, well, life eventually turns into analog. So you have to have both. Discrete math. Discrete math is kind of this interesting. It's like fun when we were first learning math, right? Yung mga Venn diagram, graph. I used to enjoy that when I was a kid. But now I think that, yeah, this is kind of fun math, but I think it's good to recall discrete mathematics, groups, trees, classifications, and those. And of course, the mother of all programming languages, C. Siyempre naman, we need to at least know a little bit of C. Because everything else, you can trace it back down to C. The others are more exotic, but C is still quite fundamental. And of course, we have the introduction to IoT. Essentially, it's a course which shows you the entire picture of IoT, from the devices all the way to application. In particular, maybe you could come up with a course which talks about Google Home, home automation or something, so you know all of the components that go. And of course, the other one, which is essential, is probability and statistics. Nung dati, when I was in school, I thought that probability and statistics was not going to be that useful because I wasn't going to go to manufacturing and I wasn't going to, and if I were to be a teacher, it's very simple to get the average and then assign, okay, everybody higher than the average will get an A, anyone below will get a B, and that would be very simple for me, statistics. But statistics is far more interesting nowadays. Particularly in machine learning. Conditional probability, for example, is so essential. Bayes' theorem. These are all so essential, particularly in neural networks. So kailangan natin, again, to review concepts of probability and statistics because this is going to be so essential. So yun na yun. 6 courses. The IoT I'm not counting as a technical course because that's the fun course. It's a very hands-on. So tapos na tayo ng first semester. We move on. We pay tuition. Oh, wait a minute. This is the University of the Philippines. And we've got a state university. So tuition is free. Okay. So then we can move on to the next semester, presumably. And the next semester, now we go deeper. The knowledge of analog and digital circuits, we now do microelectronics. Microelectronic circuits and sensors. You can design sensors, or you can implement sensors, or you can create smart sensors. You can put connectivity to sensors. You could use all sorts of electronics. But it is going to be in microelectronics. And then, of course, we need to know computers. Computer organization is essential. You got to know how computers are created. Are developed. Kahit na Linux or a simple machine, because that is going to be your introduction to cloud computing. Algorithms. Oh, this is so essential. My son is in computer science, by the way. He is working with a defense contractor, and a lot of the work he's doing is really about algorithms and things of this sort. And of course, we have to have networks and protocols. And then web-based development, web-based application development, as in maybe JavaScript, SQL searches, and so on. So you need to be able to interact with the website, and so forth, and so on. So that's 5 courses in the next semester, so you're ready to go. And then you pay your free tuition again, And then in the fourth year, and you can see that you're almost done. In the fourth year, then you get a little bit more advanced. So instead of microelectronics now, you begin with the next layer, the next level of abstraction. It's not quite the devices yet, but the next level, of course, FPGA, advanced FPGA system design, Verilog, hardware HDL. You should be able to create your own device from essentially from FPGA. Parang it's just it's like a baby's brain, and you can program it, and you can program it using FPGAs. So you have FPGA courses now, yes? Computer engineer, electrical engineer. Oh, I'm sure there are. But if you don't, this is essential. In order for us to put the next foot forward in this modern technology, we have to train our students HDL and FPGAs. And of course, we have the operating systems for embedded systems, which is not going to be a problem if you already know computer organization. Then you will know how to do so-called RTOS, which is real-time operating systems for these embedded devices. And of course, embedded systems themselves, and then network security, so-called all sorts of cybersecurity algorithms you should know and be cognizant, and of course, machine learning tools, neural networks in particular should be part of the whole mix. And so that's another 5. And then finally, yung bandang huling-huli, is security for embedded systems. You know, nowadays, we're beginning to create devices. It used to be that when we were building these embedded systems, security was just an afterthought. Ngayon, you gotta build it in design. We all know that we have these video cameras. I think every now and then you see on TV Patrol, it's capturing someone, I don't know, doing something bad. It is captured by the barangay CCTV, right? Do you know that all of those can be accessed by the manufacturer? Doesn't matter if you change the password, that's just a front. You can access. So in principle, any video that you have right now can be seen by someone if they want to see it. So, because the whole design, particularly those coming from certain countries, it's not designed for security. It's not designed for security. It's designed so you get a video, it's madaling kunin, and so on. So as a result, you are really exposing your privacy. You might say, oh, who cares? No one will care about myself anyway. But still, you're compromising a little bit. That's because it was not designed. The next generation of IoT devices will have to have a built-in security system, which is part and parcel of that embedded system. There's a lot of work on this, and so I encourage you to actually be thinking about this. And then advanced software for connected systems. I think this is self-explanatory. You should, I guess, understand yung mga typical na ginagawa nila. Microsoft Azure, for example, Google developers, Amazon Web Services, and all of those. Those are all readily available, and guess what? They're free. They're free because they want to encourage people to use their software. You have to learn advanced software for connected systems. Technical writing. It is something so essential to be able to document things and to be able to speak and write properly. It is no point, like what I said, to have the brightest idea in your head if you cannot convince anyone, if you cannot communicate or tell it to anyone, then it's almost as good as no idea. So it is essential. And the Filipinos, I think, have a little bit of advantage in that, simply because we like to write, I think. Some of us like to write, and we like to document things, and so on. And so it's very essential that we should all pay attention to our English teachers, even though they ask us to write term papers and so on. It is essential. I always say, I should say that when I was in school, that was kind of my least favorite classes was English, 2, 3, what is it now? Com 1, Com 2, yeah, yeah. Now I regret, actually no, I didn't regret. Now I wish that I have spent more time because writing, the higher you go up in your career, the more essential the effective writing becomes. And of course, a capstone design experience. You got to build something. You got to do something. And that is a curriculum for 4 years. For 2 years. You see, it's not that and I assure you, if you have a curriculum with all of these courses in it, you are going to be golden in anywhere in this space, and you would have enhanced your value by probably an order of magnitude. Okay, so I think that's about all I have, and I would probably close a little bit by just how do you enhance IoT activities in the Philippines? I'll tell you again, computer science people should be talking to electrical engineers. Hackers and thinkers should be talking with regular people. Ano bang problema dyan, tatang? Ganito. Maybe we could do that with an IoT. It is not so difficult now to do this. You have to talk about regular people because regular people have the regular problems that you can solve. Doctors and medical practitioners ought to be cognizant of IoT. You just cannot escape this anymore because it's going to take over. And so IoT should be talked about in medical programs as well. Farmers and fishermen, merchants and shopkeepers, our military and our civil defense people should talk to IoT. We have a problem in the West Philippine Sea. Maybe it's better to maybe if we can come up with a system that would monitor our waters without anybody knowing. And without buying it necessarily from anywhere. Maybe we can develop submarine IoT applications in which you have a network of these things that are monitoring the activities in the Philippine waters without buying it. Because if you bought it from someplace else, then they know that you have it. Well, maybe, wouldn't it be wonderful if, wow, this is created by these young people and they created something that nobody thought that the Philippines had the capability. You don't know, you can do it probably. And of course, we've got public infrastructure, utilities, transportation, architects, and so forth, and so on. And then, creating the environment. This is for the administrators. Joint projects for different academic departments. Joint projects between colleges, medicine. Go ahead, talk to electrical engineers, computer science people. You can learn from each other. It's amazing. Law, joint projects between state universities. In fact, I would like to, I'm looking at the monitor now and I'm looking at the people from other state universities. Medyo kumaway nga kayo sa akin. Hello? Could you wave? Could you hear me? If you wave, nako. Come on, don't be shy. Wave, so I know you're there. Hello? Hello? I don't know where okay, good. So I'd like you to engage. These people from state universities, go ahead. The people here from UP, the people from Mariano Marcos, from Ateneo, they're very friendly. I think, di ba? They are friendly. Go, if you have ideas, go ahead and communicate. If they've got resources, I think this is the way that we can spur growth in the Philippines, is for you to join forces, particularly the different state universities. Aba, what do you have to lose? Tuition is free. So you don't have to lose anything. And then joint projects with international consortium. There's one in New Zealand. There's a lot of that. Participate. research projects for smart anything, including agriculture, marine sensing, actuation, real-world problems, and so on. And let's promote thesis projects for IoT applications in commerce, business opportunities, disaster mitigation, and so on. And I really think we ought to be engaging DPWH, MMDA, LGUs, the local government. I know that traffic is a problem, but maybe if you've got clever ideas, go ahead. I think that that's something that we can start. Remember, we have problems in the Philippines to solve. And so I think there's a lot of very, very bright people here. So I really think that we could, if we talk to each other, then we can have a positive step. And finally, you can have joint capstone projects with architects and builders and so on. How do you get money? Hardware components are now very common, ubiquitous, and costs are very low. Yes, there's a little bit of problem with documentation, but that's okay. If you can get access to the signals, you do not need documentation. I think you can pretty much figure out how certain things work. You just go to, where is it that you buy now? Raon? Anyway, you can buy. But the one thing that I can promise is that, or hope to promise, is that I'm going to hook you up. I'm going to have if you like, a relationship with Texas Instruments. Are you familiar with Texas Instruments? Oh, gumagawa siya ng calculator. But 80% of the chips in iPhone is made by Texas Instruments. I like Texas Instruments for following reason. The vice president is a good friend of mine. But more importantly, they did not leave the Philippines when all of the other companies left. They still have Texas Instruments. They still have a facility in Baguio and in Clark. And they have remained true, and they're very good to us. And they have said, look, Mel, that's okay. If you're going to spur some development over there, we'd be very, very happy to support. As a matter of fact, in my trip this afternoon, I have a workshop. They have gladly donated almost $250,000 peso worth of equipment that we are going to be using today and this afternoon just to play with. And so we have this. So we have a little bit of a good backer if we need resources to do that. And of course, kailangan naman natin ng assistance from our government agencies. DOST, CHED, DOD. Meron ba tayong DOD? Department of Defense? Yeah? We should have an equivalent of DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced, super top secret work. Let's have a super top secret work in the Philippines, doing something really clever, like Ant-Man or something. And then we have assistance from local companies, and we should really go for competitive international grants. And I think that that's the last. The conclusion is really quite simple. I am here to preach. I am here to preach and to tell you this is coming. Whether we like it or not, there is a wave of the IoT. Is going to be a wave. There's two kinds of people, digital haves and digital have-nots. We certainly do not want to be a have-not. And one more thing, sabi nga ng African proverb, you cannot change the wind, which is why you bend your sail. I think it's about time that we bend our sails and we embrace this IoT with full gusto so that we can be very competitive. In order to do this, we need to develop young talents. A young talent in the area of embedded systems, programming, network protocol, cloud computing, and machine learning. Simple lang. And then, we are going to be ready to face the future. Maraming salamat po sa inyo. Bye, guys. Again, I'd like to thank Texas Instruments. I don't know if you have representatives over here. If not, I made the promise that I'm going to acknowledge them. And so they are basically donating quite a lot of these devices, from microcontrollers to sensors to Wi-Fi systems and so on, which we are going to hopefully play with this afternoon. Okay, so thank you.
Again, a round of applause for Dr. Gomez. Thank you very much for your talk. I think we have a few minutes to entertain some questions for our participants here and our attendees. Kung may mga remote guests tayo na gustong mag-raise ng questions. I will not attempt to summarize or his presentation that's so comprehensive, but I will just invite people to visit the YouTube channel of EEI. We are recording this presentation, so you can go back to it and maybe think about some of the points that Dr. Gomez presented this morning para din naman ma-plan ninyo ang inyong future. Because the sense that I was getting while Dr. Gomez was making his presentation is two things. You can be utopian in your vision for the future if you look at these developments right now, or you can be Orwellian. And the thing is, for you to have a positive perspective about these things, you need to be prepared. You need to be competitive and arm yourself. So yun yung main key takeaway ko na lang sa kanyang presentation for this afternoon, and that's why I appreciate nung nilatag niya sa atin this morning what we need to learn to be prepared for this next wave of people have talked about the fourth industrial revolution. So I can anticipate moving forward. So I'm just buying time for people to think about the questions actually. So right now I'm just waiting for people to raise their hands. Meron ba kayong mga tanong para sa mga tao dito, or medyo ano pa kayo, nasa starstruck pa kayo dun sa mga subjects ni sir? How about for the people who joined us from Batangas State University and BU and PSU? Meron ba kayong tanong? We have here, ito meron tayo isang guest here who would like to ask a question. Lapit na lang po, if you can introduce yourself.
I'm Arvin from Azure University. Thank you very much for a wonderful talk. You talk about a lot about neural networks. Usually you're talking about deep learning in this sense. I have heard that deep learning has been used for images using CNN, has been used for social media using RN, but this is the first time I've heard that it's used for IoT. So in a commercial scale, I'm just curious, what sort of data are you analyzing using neural network in terms of IoT? And then second question would be, are there companies already in the Philippines that are doing this, or is a startup will come in this field?
Very good. Thank you for that question. Neural networks, as you know, is a fairly it's been used for a very long time now. On IoT, remember, IoT is you get the data and you use analytical methods used in neural networks. So an example is temperature and stamped with time. Pag alam mo yung dalawa na yun, then you can make predictions of movements of population. If you know, maybe it's a little bit too advanced, but this concept of deep learning is about the typical way that it's taught is the old-fashioned way of pattern recognition. That's what they say. Neural networks about pattern recognition, and of course the hello world of pattern recognition is like handwriting analysis. Okay? And then, but that's just one part of it. And then you've got the visual, computer vision. That's another. But think a little bit broadly. You have the capability, you have the context, and you have sensors. What can you extract from those sensors based on a neural network algorithms? patient care. Okay? Imagine, I'm not talking about, you have to think big, right? Imagine that all patients, you can monitor their temperature at any given moment in time in a very regular way. And you know the context of it, and you know the symptoms of this patient. Then you can make predictive. You can have very accurate predictions on the prognosis of specific kinds of patients based upon the information that you have obtained. Okay? Yeah? Sobrang dami niya. Imagine, you have big data. You have all of this data. You can create patterns. Pag ang bata ay may sipon at 5 o'clock, nagvary ang temperature ng ganito karami, based upon, and so forth and so on, and lives in Tondo, lives in Barangay 101 or whatever, in Tondo, ang bata is 7 years old, and so forth and so on, the chances are 92.2% that this person has this particular disease. That is an example of artificial intelligence. Malaking masyado machine learning. That it's the probability. Remember, machine learning is about predicting something that you kind of don't know yet. But you have a lot of other conditional probabilities that will support you. The conditional probability, you get the data because you're getting it from IoT devices. So a lot of people are thinking of neural networks, that's the classic, that's the hello world. Typically in schools and classes, we're going to talk about neural networks, you talk about conditional probability, and we're going to do handwriting or visual, audio processing, visual. Those are the obvious ones. Those are hard problems, but those are the obvious ones. But think about others then, so you have data. What kind of predictive capability do you have?
Right. So thank you, sir. Before going on to other questions, going back to the other point that Dr. Gomez pointed earlier, that's why you also need to talk to people from other disciplines and to get to know the problems that you'd like to solve moving forward.
But I wanted to add, meron kong sinabi, are there companies doing that?
Yes.
I actually don't know. But why not create your own? Diba? The question is, how are you going to get all of that data? Well, I wonder if LTFRB would be able to give us the data for the whereabouts of all of the transportation systems. I understand now that the operators of these transportation groups, they have a tweet, oh, your taxi cab 102 is parked somewhere there. They get tweets every now and then, right? I don't know if this is true everywhere, but you have that capability right now. Because it is now by law that you have to have these transponders, isn't it? I just learned it. I was actually quite amazed. Well, where is all that data going? Does it only go to the operator? If not, then you're making full use of it. If the government has all of that data, if the government is the data of the whereabouts of the transportation system, then perhaps there are specific patterns that they can recognize in order to mitigate traffic problems. I don't know how to do that. But my God, if I were your age, I'll probably start a company based on that. The first thing is, how do I get the data? Are they going to share it to me for free? Mga ganon. But if you have that, the sky is the limit.
Any other questions from my guests here? Or gusto mga nalabang D?
Sir.
Clarence is here from Picari Private. Some moderation. Some moderation. Okay, we have questions.
Hello, may gusto po bang magtanong ng questions? Raise na lang po ng hand.
While we're waiting, pwede naman dito.
Good morning, sir. I'm Kevin from University of Southeastern Philippines in Davos. I currently work as a software engineer in Accenture. And before I ask my question, I'd like to answer this question. Accenture is one of the primary companies in the Philippines, and it is the priority of Accenture today is in artificial intelligence, data science, machine learning, IoT, and all that stuff. So now, my question would be, do you know of any financial aid or scholarship abroad at University of Maryland, perhaps?
Oh,
That's a good question.
That's a very, very good question, and the answer is I know a lot about it. The idea is graduate school. I mean, that's the one like I told you earlier that if someone finishes in the Bachelor's of Science in Engineering degree at the University of Maryland or any other university, the job prospects are tremendous. They would get 2 or 3 offers, and they basically even have sign-up bonuses, and they make a lot of money. And as a result, it's very difficult for them. Why would they want to go to grad school? Why would you want to be a poor, starving graduate student, enslaved by your professor, and so on, for 3 years, paid almost close to nothing? Why would you want to do that if you are making, I don't know, $7,000 a month working in a company? So as a result, there's a lot less number of students going to grad school in the United States. And the United States is in need of graduate students. And therefore, that's to everyone. The first thing that you want to do, if you wanted to go to further your education, financial aid, they're going to offer to you almost for free. You apply to the program. And then you're going to be a graduate student. As a graduate student, they are going to pay, the university will pay tuition. And you are going to be given stipend. And you're going to have health insurance. And you're going to have all the resources that you need to survive. It's not going to be, you're not going to be very rich, but you can live. You can buy a car, you can, as a graduate student. And that is going to be about 3 years or so. Now you might say, is that financial aid? I suppose so. That's probably financial aid, but there is no strings attached. Once you graduate, you're on your own. And that's the beauty. Now, what did you give back to the university? You gave your skill. While you are learning, you are developing and creating new knowledge. And that is part of the role of the university. Which is why, thank you to your question, it is not that hard to go and study abroad. When you have a BS degree from the Philippines, a lot of them need what is known as graduate record exams, GRE. Have you heard of GRE? Yeah. Today is your lucky day. GRE, take an exam. Ano ba yung GRE na yan? Graduate record exams. It's just a requirement. But of course, when you take an exam, you have to pay money, so you kind of review a little bit. But it's really very straightforward. Analytics, mathematics, and so on. You get your GRE, you have your transcript, you send it, a few recommendations from your professor saying that he's one of our top students, he can walk on water without knowing where the stones are, and so on. You get a few recommendation letters, and then you go there. And chances are When you go to the United States, like in my university, you're offered what is known as a teaching assistantship, where you teach maybe 1 or 2 courses, probably about 4 hours a week or so. The rest, you involve yourself in studies and so on, and then you're paid your stipend, and you can live comfortably. So, make a long story short, there's a lot of opportunities. That's why I told you the world is in need of STEM. In the US alone, in my neck of the woods, they needed, Amazon set up a headquarters close to our place. Not my place, it's within the area, about 25 miles from College Park. They need 20,000 software engineers. My university can only produce 700. The others probably a couple of hundred here and there. Where are we going to get, where is Amazon going to get 19,000 of these software engineers? Certainly not. So there is this tremendous need right now. So if you're interested in graduate school, machine learning, artificial intelligence, apply and say you're interested in pursuing machine learning, and you're almost sure that you are going to get in. Of course, when you get there, you got to show them what you're made of, right? Your intelligence should not be artificial. You're studying artificial intelligence, but your intelligence is real. So pupunta kayo, and you will find it's a lot more. I've seen a lot of students, and even my colleagues, they say, you know, the Filipinos, they're worth 2 or 3 times the regular graduate student from any other country. That's probably true. Yeah, I mean, because we work hard, we don't complain, we don't say, oh, we did not learn this in school. Filipinos, we didn't learn it in school, but so was 90% of the stuff I need to know anyway. So I'm going to learn it. Joke. Half joke. Anyway, so, but that's what we are. It's just in the culture of being resilient. Dami nating bagyo eh, you know. So we are all very good with this. We are culturally, we are resourceful. And we go to the US, that's what they see. We don't complain either, unless things have changed. Are you complainers now? No. Okay, if you're a Filipino, you don't complain. It's okay. You need work done, you get work done. And that's why they love the Philippines. So I know, spoke so much. The bottom line, financial opportunities, money is coming out of their ears to give away. So, apply.
We have a couple more minutes to entertain one question, maybe one last question before we break for lunch. Sir?
Very good talk as always.
Thank you.
And Gary Tapang from the National Institute of Physics. One of the problems with IoT is the sexy part is at the end. The interface, the nice software, etc. And the government or the end users would all just look at that. But the meat of the matter happens in all the protocols and all. So how do you think we should be doing it in the Philippines so that IoT will be the consciousness of the people who decide things and who have the money, and to make things interesting for the engineers and the scientists so that we can do the IoT from all the stages?
That's a very, very good question. Oh, I say the sexy part is in the, well, Philippines is very good with sexy. I mean, we've got Catriona Gray, I mean, but in reality, the key point in IoT, Daniel, is you reduce the barrier for use. You reduce the barrier for use. What does that mean? Meron kang IoT, it works all the time. It is so easy to use. The reason why a lot of the IoTs now are failing is because very clunky, Do you have this remote control? It used to be to everyone remote control for the TV, right? Oh, now I got dual. I have the TV and the VCR. And then there's the, wait a minute, the power supply. There's the audio. And pretty soon, you got 6 different remote controls on your table. Tama? Mali. Correct. Think about that. It is so clunky and it is so difficult to use. IoT could be like that. If IoT becomes a collection of different kinds of remote control, forget it. It's never going to be as sexy as you think it is. If you are going to develop an IoT product, make sure that the barrier to use is so low that anyone can use it anytime. And now you said the government people, whatever, the sexy part, and all of the complexity is hidden. Well, that's always technology. As a government, as a administrator, as a science administrator, and so on, you really don't have time to look at the arcane details because that's the whole point of having other people. But you actually see the product. Because it is up to you that you would decide whether it is going to be of tremendous usefulness. But if you have a product that is easy to use, then it is easy to see how to use it in much broader context. Pero pag clunky, nahirap. Which is why it is incumbent upon the researchers like yourself to make sure that whatever products you develop will have to be as smooth, as easy, and as reliable as you can make it. Okay? I like to bash. Look at some of the Chinese, the stuff that you buy. I mean, sometimes they work, but sometimes they don't work, right? The documentation is crappy. But that's not the way to produce things. That's not the way to produce things. You want something that will be plug and play. Something that will go in there, it's almost transparent so that the users don't see the nuts and bolts. They just see the application. If you have a product at that level, then that is a winning level. So that's my take. Sadly, you have to have extra work. The onus is on the developer to make sure that it is reliable and the barrier to use is very low. You're not picked off the day.
I guess all that's left for me to say would be,
They're clapping.
please.
Gusto nila umuwi. Gutom na kayo, no?
Oh, yeah. Speaking of which, one final announcement before we formally close this talk for this morning. For our lunch, you were given stubs when you registered. Were you not? If not, you may approach people from the registration booth. For those who are slated to take their lunch at room 220 here at III, that's upstairs, the 2nd floor. And then if you're at the other venue where they organize the lunch, please approach Miss Jen at the registration table. She will assist you in getting to your venue for the lunch. And that would be the last thing that is in the way of you enjoying your meal. With that, I'd like for everyone to please close the program with a roaring round of applause for Dr. Gordon. We'd like to thank everyone for coming here at EEI to attend this event, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you.